Hey guys, if you're clicking on this video, it's probably because you want to get the Dualsense 5 controller working with your TouchDesigner project. Um, and here's a way to do it if you're on a Mac. So this is a .tox file that you can download and save and use in your project. In short, it's basically an Osc receiver. Um, if you don't know what that means, that's totally fine. You'll see, I'll give you a quick demo of how it works. Um, but yeah, so to get this to work, first thing I should probably mention is that you're going to need to download an app called Dualsense M. It's an app by Polyverse, and you can find it here on the App Store if you just search Dualsense M. It's the first one right here. And if we go ahead and open it, you can see that it looks kind of something like this. And it's a pretty simple app. If you just go over to like the touchpad LED, for example, and set the color to static, and let's say we make it green, then you can see right here, if your controller is plugged in, it will change the light to green. And if we change it to rainbow, and of course, if you see the word controller connected here, then you'll know as the colors are changing that your controller is connected successfully to the app. So it's a pretty cool app because it also has this button right down here called Audio Haptics. Um, that is basically a trigger that gets sent out to the controller that allows it to use the audio haptics, um, the embedded haptic speaker inside the controller. If you're like me and you've tried getting the haptic speaker to work on a Mac device, you've probably had some trouble, especially going down here into like your the audio MIDI setup and trying to configure the speaker. Um, I haven't been able to get it to work without this app, but with this app, all you have to do is just toggle the button on, and then boom, it just suddenly starts working. Um, so that's another cool thing about the app. But what I'm here to show you today is under the More tab. By the way, if you want to get the Pro version of this app, which I think is what you need to get the OSC data, it's about $5. And you can, of course, set the IP address of your computer and the port that you want to send the data out on. And that's pretty much how we get set up for our TouchDesigner project. So somewhere maybe in the description or some part of this video, I'll put a link to where you can download the TOX file. And I'll just give you a quick demo of what it looks like right now. So you'll get something like this. And let's get more screen space. Cool. So effectively what it is it's just an OSC receiver, and you'll drop it into your project, and you can of course see the levels of all of the channels, or the names of all the channels, sorry. You can see that we've got like the L1 button here and the L2 button, and then also if the button is like being pressed, whether it's like pressed at all, and then also the values which range from 0 to 255, and a lot of other things about the device. Um, in the TOX, you can also change the port that you're on if you want to change your address as well. Maybe you want to run the app on a Mac and send the data out to a Windows computer that you have like somewhere in the same room. You can also do that. It's just the OSC protocol. So you can have fun and mess around with those, and you can reset the channels and reset the values using these pulse buttons. But let's get into the cool stuff. So something that makes this a little bit more efficient than using the joystick chop is that the joystick chop has less channels and they're not as appropriately named. Of course, it's got, the triggers and the buttons and stuff, but it doesn't really have this touchpad data. It also doesn't have the options and the share button or the PlayStation button or the microphone button. As far as I know, maybe it is there, maybe this whole project is pointless. But with the OSC receiver, we actually do get the touchpad data. We get the options, buttons, and of course, our joysticks and everything else. So yeah, this is pretty much our receiver, and you can use this in your projects if you want. If you have no idea how to use it, I guess maybe we can kind of do a short little demonstration with a project that I've already got running here in the background. So this project isn't super crazy. I mean, I just kind of put it together in like an hour. It's got a little bit of everything, I'd say. It's kind of got, like some texture operators. It's got some surface operators with a little bit of geometry. That's how you're seeing this cube here. It's got a bit of a feedback loop going on. And it's also got a camera set up here. So what I've done is I've made a keyboard input like WASD that will control the camera in this project. And if I press the buttons on my keyboard, you can kind of see what that does. If I press A, it kind of moves a little bit to the left. If I press D, it goes a little more right. If I press W, it zooms in. S, it backs out a little bit. But maybe you don't want to rely on your keyboard buttons for this. Maybe instead, it would be easier to use something like, the Osc Controller. So let's connect this on out to a select chop, and then let's get, like our D-pad up button, and let's also get our D-pad down button, and our D-pad left, and our D-pad right, and what about also the L1 button, and let's also get the R1 button. So in this case, I'm just going to be super duper lazy here for the sake of time, and I'm just going to rename all of these guys to the names of these channels up here. So we'll name all of them to KW, KA, KS, KD, KQ, and KE. And then what I can pretty easily do here is just plug that into my project. Now when I press the up button, you can see it's basically the same as if the W was pressed. If I press down, it's the same thing as A or S or D. And now I'm not having the problem of pressing D and then it's like displaying certain operators and whatnot. So now I can use the arrow buttons on this controller to kind of control my project a little bit. Another thing you can do is, let's say we want to make use of that touchpad data, which we didn't have before. So we'll go ahead and head over here, get us, whoops, sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. We want to get another select chop. We'll just kind of drag that down here to some random place in the project. And let's just get the channels touchpad X and touchpad Y. So as we can see here, as I move my finger around on the touchpad, maybe I will put my video on screen as well so you can see. So here we go. So as I move my finger around on the touchpad, you can see that the value for X goes from 0 to about 1900, maybe a little bit more. And then in the Y direction, it goes from 0 at the top to about 1100 going down. So let's do a pretty typical math operation. If you've never used the math chop before, this is some way that you can use it. Let me actually, because I'm going to map this two different ways, I'm going to get another select chop down here. This one will only have the touchpad X, and this one will only have touchpad Y. And let's plug this into a math, and we'll change the range. So X again goes from 0 to 1900. So let's change it from 0 to 1900 down to 0 to 1. And now it's a lot more familiar data that we're seeing here, just like 0 up to 1. And then also our our touchpad Y, let's plug that into a math as well. Let's change the range from, let's see, 0 to about 1080 maybe, I don't know. Whoops, wrong one. From 0 to 1080 instead to 0 to 1. So now we can use those two values to change something like maybe the scale of our circle on the screen right now. So we'll go ahead and activate these two chops. We'll drag the X value into the scale X. We'll drag the Y value into the scale Y. And now as I move my finger around on the touchpad, you can see how it kind of warps into different shapes. And then you can also see kind of in this little feedback loop that I've got here going on, how, sorry, too many things on screen at the same time. Let's hide my video. Let's hide the end of the project. There we go. Now you can see how as I move my finger around on the touchpad, it kind of changes the visual here and kind of gives it maybe more of a squiggly effect. I don't know, kind of weird. But yeah, that's just a quick example of how you can just download the OSC reader, drop it into your project. Oh, I've actually got two of them running at the same time. That's okay. And yeah, there's another cool thing about the OSC reader that you can kind of use, but it's the accelerometer, the gyroscope data. So right now it's kind of frozen, even though I am moving the control around. The problem is that you need to have the app Dualsense M open in the foreground for it to send the gyro and accelerometer data. So if I kind of half pull my screen over here, you can see as I move the controller, it's kind of working. But as soon as that app is no longer in the foreground, it's kind of frozen. Even though I'm shaking my controller, it's not moving. So if you want that data, which also I don't think you can get from the joystick chop, you may want, I don't know, like one Mac running the application and then have the TOE or the TOX file open on like a Windows computer or some other computer. That might be a useful workaround. It's really whatever you want to do, but I just wanted to share this with you guys because now we have like some access to more, data and stuff in the controller, and maybe you can use it in some creative ways.